For years, I believed speaking my truth meant speaking it loudly. The stronger my words, the more people would finally understand me. But every honest conversation seemed to push people further away, and I couldn't see why. Then I came across a single teaching from the Buddha about the way words actually travel between hearts. Not through force, not through volume, through something far quieter. Today, that teaching is for you. In the northern reaches of India, just outside the ancient city of Varanasi, there was a forest called the Deer Park. Deer grazed quietly in its clearings. Wind moved softly through the leaves. It was a gentle place. One dawn, about 2,500 years ago, a man sat alone in that forest. The last traces of night still clung to the edges of the sky, a deep fading violet. One by one, birds were finding their voices in the trees. The ground was damp, and dewdrops waited at the tips of the grass, holding still for the light to come. The man said nothing. After a long journey, he had grasped something. But could he ever pass it on to another person? The moment it became words, would it stop being real? In the pre-dawn forest, he remained in silence. The weight of that silence was the beginning of everything that would come after. 7 weeks he sat there, or so the stories say, moving little, eating less, while the world continued its ordinary turning. Merchants on the road to Varanasi calling out to one another, children splashing in the river, the smell of cooking fires rising from the city at dusk. Then one morning, he rose, dusted the earth from his robe, and began to walk. He had made his decision. 5 friends were waiting not far away, men who had once followed him and then left in disappointment, certain he had abandoned the path. When they saw him approaching across the open ground, some of them muttered that they should not stand to greet him, but something in the way he walked silenced their resolve, the way a distant lamp can quiet a room before anyone quite understands why. Without a word spoken, they found themselves rising. The man's name was Gautama Siddhartha, the one who would later be known as the Buddha. In a place called Bodh Gaya, after long weeks of meditation, he had come to see the root of human suffering with extraordinary clarity. Now he had traveled to the Deer Park because he had heard that 5 companions from his earlier days of practice were staying there. But when the 5 men saw him coming, they turned away. "Don't acknowledge him," one murmured to the others. "He gave up. He abandoned the path halfway through. He has no right to come to us." The Buddha had once practiced extreme asceticism, starving his body, pushing himself to the edge of survival. Then he had stopped. He had accepted a bowl of rice porridge from a village girl. To these 5 men, that looked like weakness, like surrender. Let him come, we won't engage with him. But something strange happened as the Buddha drew nearer. The impulse to turn him away quietly without explanation began to dissolve. Something in the quality of his presence was entirely different from before. The words they had been preparing to say softened before they could speak them. Without quite knowing why, the 5 men found themselves seated before him. The Buddha was quiet for a moment. Then calmly he spoke. "My friends, I would like to tell you what I have found." One of the 5, a man named Kandana, replied, "But you abandoned the practice. You ran from the discipline. What could you possibly have found?" The Buddha's expression didn't change. He didn't argue. He simply continued, "You're right. I stopped. I couldn't see how punishing the body would dissolve the roots of suffering. I want to tell you why I came to think that. Will you listen?" No attack returned, no defense raised, just a quiet, honest offer. "Let me tell you what I've seen." The 5 men had nothing left to say, and so the Buddha began to speak. Life holds suffering. That suffering has causes. When the causes become visible, suffering can change its shape. And there is a path toward that change, a path that included among its parts something he called right speech. Kandana listened, and tears came. The bitter words he had been ready to deliver were gone. He couldn't find them anymore. It is said that afterward he told others, "That morning I understood for the first time what words actually are." This exchange at dawn is known in Buddhist history as the first turning of the wheel, the Buddha's very first sermon. The moment he opened his mouth to another human being, and the way he opened it was already in itself a teaching. He had not begun with a doctrine. He had begun with an acknowledgement, "You are right," and then an invitation. That sequence, so small it might be missed entirely, was the wheel itself. Kandana carried that morning for the rest of his life, and when he taught others, he would often start not with the Four Noble Truths, but with a simpler question. What did you say to someone today, and did it open a door or close one? His students would sometimes answer quickly, certain they had chosen kindness, and he would wait, the way a river waits at a bend, until the silence helped them hear themselves more honestly. One monk recalled how, after a long pause, he realized the careful words he had offered his brother that morning were not wrong, but they had been aimed, like a stone thrown gently, that is still a stone. That morning in the deer park had taught Kandana something he could not put into a sutra, that the door is not in the words themselves, but in the hand that holds them out. Among the teachings the Buddha offered in the deer park that morning was something called right speech. At its simplest, right speech means using words well, not lying, not using words to wound, not filling silence with empty noise. Most people understand it this way, but that may only be the surface. What the Buddha demonstrated in the deer park wasn't a lesson in how to choose words, it was something deeper, a look at the root from which words grow. The 5 companions had been ready to unleash harsh words the moment they saw him. Go away, you betrayed us. But when those words came back at him, the Buddha had nothing to return. More precisely, there was no impulse in him to return them. Why? This is where the heart of right speech lives. When we wound someone with words, or when we turn our words against ourselves, there is almost always the same structure underneath. A fixed image in the mind. This is how things should be. When someone steps outside that image, or when we step outside it ourselves, anger or grief rises up and reaches for words. It isn't poor word choice that makes language cut like a blade, it's the fixed belief, you should be this way, I should be this way, that turns words into weapons. The 5 men rejected the Buddha because they carried an image of what a true practitioner looked like. When he stepped outside it, their words automatically moved toward condemnation. But inside the Buddha, that rigid image had already grown thin, and so the words that came from him arrived, naturally, without edges. Here is something worth pausing to consider. When you speak to someone, or when you speak about yourself, have you ever stopped to look at what's underneath the words? Why don't you understand? Underneath, you should understand by now. Why is it always me? Underneath, things should be fair, I'm so useless. Underneath, I should be more than this. And here is the deeper question. Where did those shoulds come from? Words a parent once said, a wound from long ago, a quiet, relentless comparison to someone else. The image of how things should be is rarely one we consciously chose. It accumulated, layer by layer, in the spaces between our experiences without our ever noticing. If that's true, then right speech is not a technique for choosing better words. It is the practice of noticing the fixed beliefs that live before the words arrive. When that noticing happens, the words begin to shift on their own. Perhaps the reason the Buddha sat in silence before he spoke in the deer park was exactly this. He was making space for that kind of noticing, not composing a reply, not selecting carefully from a prepared list of acceptable phrases, simply waiting, the way you might wait for silt to settle before drinking from a stream, not because he had found the right words, but because the need to defend, to correct, to reclaim something had simply fallen away. So how does this reach into the everyday moments of our lives? Think about a moment at work. You put forward an idea in a meeting. It doesn't land, and somewhere inside, or maybe out loud to a colleague afterward, a voice says, "They never listened to me. That person wasn't even trying to understand." That voice sounds like it's about them, but look at what's underneath. My ideas should be heard. What is right should be recognized. The fixed belief is already there, quietly running the show. Before reaching for different words, is it possible to notice that belief first? Sometimes when you do, the words that follow are softer, almost without trying. Maybe I can come at this from a different angle. That kind of sentence becomes available. Now think about family. You've told your child the same thing 10 times. They keep doing it anyway, and one day the words come out sharp. How many times do I have to say this? I've had enough. The child's face closes, and then comes the regret. What was underneath? A child should understand when a parent explains, one good talk should be enough. But this child, right now, today, is growing at their own pace, in their own order, in their own particular way. The gap between the fixed image and the real child in front of you is where the sharp words are born. The moment you notice that gap, something can shift. The voice lowers, the words thin out. Sometimes you simply sit beside them without speaking at all. That too is a form of right speech. And then there are the words we turn on ourselves. Late at night, lying in bed after a day that went wrong, what do you say to yourself in the dark? Why did I say that? Why am I always like this? It feels like reflection, but it's closer to a trial. The fixed belief, I should have been better than this, has put you in the dock. In the deer park, when the 5 men accused him, the Buddha neither defended himself nor condemned himself. He simply said quietly, "This is what I saw. This is what I concluded." When that same quietness finds its way into how we speak to ourselves at the end of a hard day, something in the dark of that room can change, just a little. The accusing voice softens, not into flattery, not into excuse, but into something more like a witness. Today was hard. I did what I could with what I had. That witnessing tone, steady, neither harsh nor indulgent, is closer to the truth of what actually happened than any verdict could be. The day was what it was. You were who you were in it. And sometimes from that quieter place a small question opens up. What might I do differently tomorrow? Not as punishment, just as the next step on the path. Here are 2 small things you might try beginning today. The first, 3 breaths before the words come out. The next time you feel the urge to say something to someone else or in response to something that's been said to you, try taking just 3 slow breaths first. Inhale gently, exhale gently, 3 times. This isn't about holding your words back. It's about using those 3 breaths to glance inward. What is actually here right now? Is it anger, anxiety, a quiet sadness you haven't named yet? I think the Buddha's silence before he spoke in the deer park was something like this. He had something he wanted to say, but first he looked inward. That stillness changed the words that followed. During those 3 breaths, you might ask yourself, just once, quietly, what am I believing should be different right now? You don't need an answer. The question alone is enough to slow the words down a little. The second, 1 word looked at before sleep. Before you close your eyes tonight, call up just 1 thing you said today, to someone else or to yourself. It doesn't have to be the worst moment, just one. Ask yourself, what was underneath that? Was there a should at work? Or was I simply seeing what was actually in front of me? Not to judge, not to correct, just to look. Doing this won't suddenly make you someone whose words always land gently, but the number of times you catch the root, the hidden belief before the words form, may quietly begin to grow. The change will be slow, unremarkable, the kind no one else will notice at first, but it is a real step, modest and honest, in the direction of right speech. A monk I once heard about kept a small stone on his pillow for exactly this purpose. Each night he would hold it, think of one exchange from his day, and simply breathe. He told his students he did this for 20 years before he fully understood what he was looking for, and that the looking itself had been the practice all along. Some nights you may pick up that stone and find nothing. No particular word, no clear moment to examine. Do not reach for one. That blankness is also something worth sitting with. Among the words you spoke today, to someone else or silently to yourself, was there one that had a hidden should tucked inside it? There's no rush to answer. Tonight, when the day has quieted, see if you can let that question settle gently in you. Like a stone dropped into still water, you don't need to chase the ripples. Just watch where they go. A monk once told me he spent 3 years trying to fix his mind before he realized he had been arguing with the rain. Perhaps you too have stood at a window somewhere, watching the weather, waiting for it to become something more agreeable. The rain does not harden itself against us. We simply forgot that we were the ones who stepped outside without a coat. Right speech begins not with the tongue, but with the ear, and we explored that quiet foundation of deep listening in a previous teaching. You'll find the link in the description below. When the Buddha finally spoke at dawn in the deer park, his first words were not accusations, not explanations, not encouragement. They were simply an honest, quiet attempt to share what he had seen. Our words reflect our insides more faithfully than we tend to realize. Gentle words come from a gentle interior. Words that cut come from something inside that is already cutting. If that's true, then trying to change our words before looking at what lies beneath them maybe starting in the wrong place. The fixed beliefs, the shoulds, are not in themselves bad. They are part of how we hold things dear. But when they operate without our awareness, words can fly in directions we never intended. The silence the Buddha kept in the deer park before he spoke was not, I think, the silence of someone polishing their words. It was the silence of someone resting for a while, in the stillness before words. In that stillness, something clarified. Thank you for spending this time listening today. Looking at the roots of your words, rather than just the words themselves, is not an easy thing to do. But the fact that you are here, quietly making that effort, tells me the seed of it is already in you. That seed does not need to be forced. A farmer who digs up the ground every morning to check whether the root has grown will not help it along. Like the Buddha sitting beneath the Bodhi tree, sometimes the most faithful thing we can do is simply stop disturbing the soil. Trust that the quiet work you have already begun will in its own season find its way toward the light. Whose face came to mind while you were listening today? One story a day. In a week your words will change. In a month your eyes will change. In a year, the same world will look completely different.